Hey guys, this is DFD, aka Dark Frozen Death, back with another Kamihime project video. Before I get started with this, I'm just going to mention this one quick little thing. I've been asked before to do guides on Magic Kami, and unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to do any guides on them because of the fact that a lot of the stuff in there is more or less samey looking at their JP wiki. So you're generally just going to want somebody that can deal damage, somebody that can debuff, somebody that can buff, maybe a healer or a tank or something like that. It's the same stuff basically for a lot of different things that go on in there, so I'm not going to do that. And then on top of that, Sabbath is a whole nother can of worms because it's got its own little meta and whatnot. And for the most part, all I can say is if you played Epic 7 before, general strategies will still apply here too. You pretty much just get speed, get some more turn control. You make sure you can debuff your enemy's defense because that's really going to make a difference. And simply put, just try to get your turns off first in Sabbath. That's all I can really say for Magic Kami, at least when it comes to strategies or whatnot. The rest is heavily RNG dependent and a whole nother thing behind it all. So quite frankly, I'm not going to do any guides on that. But anyways, this is going to be a wind event that's already happened before. So if you have the previous weapons, you can now final break the one that doesn't cost as many materials as the other SSR. I do believe it's the axe, but we'll see further down. But this is a Strauss event. It's hard to pronounce her name. She's the owl girl, and she did have a spread mechanic as far as I remember. And this is an advent event, so you are on your own. Make sure you're strong enough to at least clear expert, of course. Preferably ultimate or even better Ragnarok, because we still need stuff from all of those. But same general stuff applies as previous videos, so I'm not really going to go too quick into it. Everybody should more or less know what's more priority at this point anyways, or at least obviously be able to see it. So generally just saying, get the stuff you need. Definitely try to get the gacha tickets and magic jewels if you can spare the grind for that as well. And absolutely make sure you have enough materials in order to final break the weapon. If you do decide to final break it, you will need green orbs from Ragnarok, so keep that in mind. But it looks of things, we have an axe, and it's looking like a glaive for the other SSR. And looking at the abilities, they aren't too bad, either one. But again, we'll go over that later on. The event itself, yeah, this is definitely one I remember before with the defense thing. The event itself, she gives herself spread the very first turn, so keep in mind that she will be doing AoE damage quite often. Spread is a special type of buff. Some characters actually was able to use it as well, but spread is a special type of buff where it will turn your single target hit, your single target normal attack into AoE. So that means you'll see all 5 of your characters getting hit each time she attacks. And there is a combo with it as well, so worst case, you will see 15 hits, which is basically 3 per character. For those of you that have fought Ophiel, that is something that's happened in that raid before as well, so there's that. Och can also give herself the buff as well, but this is much easier content that can do it. The biggest kicker is the fact that her defense is higher than normal. If I remember correctly, it is double the normal amount for all difficulties except Ragnarok, which would be triple the amount. Normally defense is set at 10 for enemies. Some fights you'll see it at 8. Others might change it and have it somewhere like maybe 12 or so. She has 20 in all difficulties except Ragnarok, where she'll have 30. So in a sense, you're essentially doing half damage or even 1/3 the damage for Ragnarok. So be very wary of that. Defense down is probably going to be quite helpful to prevent this fight from dragging out. But to counter it, I do remember her HP being much lower. than other bosses of each difficulty, so keep that in mind. But generally, the fight is she puts spread her very first turn, and whenever her HP goes below half, she's going to permanently buff her combo rate. I don't know if you can remove it or not. I'll double check further down. And when she nukes you, normal mode, it is going to be 3 random hits, and raging mode is going to be 2 random hits, only the hits are stronger. She's overall doing more damage on raging than normal. And as far as I can tell, it does not change regardless of difficulty. It's just a simple fact that her HP is higher. So it starts off at 340,000 for expert, then it goes up to 600,000 for ultimate, and for Ragnarok it is 1,350,000 HP, which generally is about half of what it would be for other fights, more or less. But again, the main mechanic is definitely her spread ability and the defense. So that said, it is very good to know what the defense debuffs are for your team, because if you can get her to half defense, then that will really help your damage output. Otherwise, you probably would have to worry about a lot of different multi-hits, so AoE cut is going to probably be helpful for that if you're struggling with the fights. And debuffing her isn't too much of an issue either, which is probably why they suggest Mordred. But keep in mind that given damage over time ignores defense, that could possibly be a little bit helpful. At least on the weaker difficulties. I don't know about Ragnarok. But you can rack up quite a bit of damage over time just from Mordred on Ultimate and especially Expert. In fact, I think if all of them land, she will die in just a few turns just from the damage over time. So keep that in mind. And although if you're using 4th tier souls, you're over level, there's a stronger version of Mordred, and that's easily up to like 1,000,000 or so damage over time without even doing anything. It'd be an interesting video to make. Unfortunately, I don't have that soul. But damage over time ignores defense, so does summoning and Adolin. And otherwise, you just do your same normal stuff. You just get some protection against her hits and try to really debuff her defense. I cannot stress that enough. That is the biggest gimmick of the fight, trying to get past the increased defense, because she actually has a higher defense value than most enemies in the game. But anyways, that actually looks like a sword instead of an enclave, but we're going to go over it. But the trait list is normally this stuff. It hasn't even changed. I will mention that you can skip the raid Kamihime ticket if you have all the event Kamihime, as in the free SR Kamihime from past raid events. If you are missing somebody and you can't find them in Epic Quest, that's probably when you go after this ticket. Otherwise, you probably can just skip it. And if you're getting the Dragonic Eye Shards, keep in mind that you do need those green orbs for 2 things. Final break limit on the weapon, and also 4th tier souls. Now then, going into this weapon isn't listed as final break, but it does indeed do so, so I'll click into it to see what it actually gives. I think I glanced over it at the top. It's like large assault and small defender. But the axe is definitely still worth it because of the fact that Assault Defender mix is always one of the weapons is quite worth it. And then the other one could possibly be worth it too. It's a glaive. It depends on how good your healing is, because you probably would need some ascension to an extent when your health starts getting really high, and then it still comes with an assault. The only drawback is that it doesn't final break, so it's an ascension weapon that still gives you some offense. It's not a bad idea to use one, but at the same time, it's still not priority. The axe is definitely priority. As for the Adolin herself, she is character attack, meaning that she's going to give assault. That means that she will not give you elemental attack. She will add to your assault whatever's on your grid. That doesn't necessarily make her useless, but it does make her undervalued because of the fact that she won't give as much of a boost as other add-ons could give. Where she's not useless is the fact that if you do happen to need some more defenses, then that's her second effect, where you can get up to 15% more defense. And that does have a noticeable effect on the damage you take, so keep that in mind. In fact, there's some players that have indeed used that in a raid called Full, which is a Thunder Guardian. They have indeed used that tactic a little bit. Just have one copy of her, or two if you really want to try it, but it's really going to reduce your damage. Also, having her in a sub slot, you can summon her for more defense on a buff, so keep that in mind. Honestly, she's a niche type character to be using for your Eidolon deck, so I wouldn't recommend going out your way to use her, but if you do decide to, she's mainly for extra defenses. Also keep in mind that since Eidolon orbs are a thing, you still want to grab her anyway, so whether or not you decide to keep her, you should be getting her. I would say the same for the axe weapon because of the fact that it's still very good skill leveling fodder as well if you don't decide to keep it. So just keep those things in mind about that. The elemental missions, you have to clear it with darkness. That's all I'm going to say about that because this is the same stuff. I'm not going over it anymore. So just know dark element is the elemental mission. Everything else is the same. Just have certain rarities and win without reviving. It's the same stuff. I'm not going to go over it. And just to double check this axe too. These are the stats when it final breaks. So it is indeed large assault that will go into, so that's very good actually. Large assault small defender is one of the better event weapons you can get. So it is definitely worth having on your wing grid if need be. Especially if you happen to have other axes, but I'm not entirely sure if you will. It's all RNG dependent, but the better wing grids aren't exactly axe anyways. They tend to be bow or glaive. But this still is pretty good. So I would definitely keep it unless you have something stronger. So keep that in mind. But anyways, one last thing I'm going to go over here, because I'm going to see if I can find it on here. There was something listed about different defense powers of enemies. Yeah, here we go, right here. So generally, these are the different defense values that aren't 10, aren't a level of 10. So this is stuff that's been listed here. As you can see, the current event is going to be one of the higher ones, because she is going to be 20 defense value, but in Ragnarok she will be 30 defense value. So keep that in mind. The only enemy that actually has more defense than her is actually a special enemy in the 6th rank accessory quest for Thunder. But that one also has such low HP that damage over time completely shreds through it. But again, with the high defense enemies, you're definitely going to want some defense down if you can land it, because you will see your damage get taken out quite a bit. Even more so if you're used to stacking defense down so you can get the full damage increase, it will still feel like half damage or even 1/3 damage, depending on which one you fight. So keep that in mind. But anyways, that's all for this. More will come soon. I don't believe I'm going to make any videos of this event because of the fact that it's easy stuff at this point. Even with the increased defense, Medea should still run through her HP very, very quickly, so if I really want to show anything off, I'd have to weaken myself, so. And given that I have Medeo on fire, that's also not a good thing. So I wouldn't even do anything like trying to use a fire team against this event either. I would just have to really, really restrict myself in order to do anything. So if I happen to do an event video, it will be that, but otherwise I'm just not going to worry about it. But anyways, that's all for now, guys. Take care.